The nation's trade deficit surges to levels not seen in nearly 6 years as the Federal Reserve intervenes to shore up a battered buck. And up close, the politics of NAFTA. President Clinton today named Chicago attorney William Daley as his point man to secure passage of his much-maligned North American Free Trade Agreement. The administration says that the deal would be a boon to the nation's economy, but labor groups claim the agreement would move U.S. manufacturing jobs to Mexico. We'll look at both sides of the debate next on Business Insiders. You'd have to go back to October 1987 to see a trade gap this wide and this worrisome. And we all know what happened in the month of October 1987. Is there some historical worrisome footnote here? Well, we might be making too much of a little item, but it was a big item of concern today in the markets. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Business Insiders. I'm Neil Cavuta. Joining me now to thrash out the economic matters at hand of the trade and other fronts, Bill Wolman. He's the chief economist of Businessweek magazine. Welcome, William. Also in today is Al Kingon. He is the president of Kingon International, in for Kathleen Hayes of Investors Business Daily, but certainly no slouch in his own right. This is a man, after all, who was a top trade official in both the Reagan and Bush administrations. Mr. Kingon, good to see you.
Neil, good to
And the chief economist of Nikko Securities joins us right now, my good friend, Robert Brusca. Good to see you, Bob.
Thank you.
Bob, I ended with you. I want to begin with you. What did you think of this trade data? Exports were down better than 3%.
Well, we know that there's a recession going on in Europe. We know that there's weakness in Japan. And what happened was that our trade surplus with Western Europe turned to a deficit. And I think that's really the story there. That's catching up with us. This may be an exaggerated decline in exports, but the story is that, you know, they're stuck in the mud. They're not going to help this recovery get any stronger. That's a real problem. It's a real message.
Al, when you look at it, are you looking at the same thing?
You know, I'll tell you a very funny story. A few weeks ago, I spoke to several Wall Street people whom I trust, and they all told me our economy...
How many? Did they fit in the room?
About 3. And they all told me, and they've been pretty right, they all told me the American economy is going to pick up because our exports are going to pick up, Europe will recover, Japan will recover, and everything will be fine. At the same time, I was engaging in discussions with Europeans who told me, we're going to be all right because the American economy is going to pick up. Each one is depending on the other, and it looks, I think it's serious, and I think we're going to have some difficulties in the months ahead.
Bill, you follow these trappings here. One of the things that at least lifted the bond market today and interest rates to their 9th straight record low session was this feeling that the economy is going nowhere, that likely second quarter GDP will be revised sharply downward, and that this is actually a perverse boon. What do you make of it?
With a bow to Mr. Brusca, the trade figure alone knocks down second quarter GDP by maybe half a percentage point. There may be some offsets to that.
So from 1.6 or so to maybe
right.
a percent?
The other thing is, you know, retail sales went off to a smashing start in the third quarter, to put it mildly, and that in itself is not a good news because if you don't get good gains in retail sales in the first month of the quarter, it's hard to make up the numbers. So basically, I do think it's going to be hard to get a statistically strong quarter. However, there is some improvement on the employment front, it seems to me, and I'm not totally bearish. I really believe that these low rates, Neil, do pack some kind of a kick, which I think we can easily underestimate. So I'm not horribly bearish, but the news is not great, obviously.
It's not hard to underestimate. We've had declining rates for how many years now, and what's happened? Virtually nothing. Come on.
Without the declining rates, Al, we would really be in trouble. I mean, come on. I mean, there's been a big improvement in corporate profits because of the declining rates. I want to give, you know, the administration a little bit of credit. I want to give Bob Rubin a little bit of credit for saying, look, give us the deficit reduction, we'll give you lower rates. And they sure as heck got what they wanted. So you can't knock them.
If they give us the tax bill and we have higher taxes and a worse economy, of course you're going to get lower rates.
What do you make of that argument, Bob?
I think that if you take a look at growth in the first part of this year, that alone is enough to justify a good deal of this bond market rally. Remember, when they took a look at the budget, one of the things they said was, well, where they started the retroactivity for taxes or where they started the tax increase would depend on the state of the economy. Well, the economy came in much worse than anybody thought. They still made it retroactive to January before this guy was even in office.
Somewhere.
Well, but the point is it has nothing to do with the state of the economy. And what they've done again and again and again is to just do things that are going to hurt this economy. The bond market rally is, I think, because of the economy, a little bit because of the budget deficit. All they do with this program is to narrow the deficits for a few years, and then they start to balloon and bulge again. Now, if you're going to buy maybe a 3-year note or a 4-year note, maybe it makes sense to buy it on what they're doing. But a 30-year bond, you got 26 unprotected years out there.
Right.
I'm not even.
I would be glad. I'd be glad for 2 years of deficit reduction because I don't know what's going to happen 3 years from now. I really don't. So I'll take it. I don't think it's a bad deal.
You sure you're going to have 2 years of deficit reduction?
No, I'm not. But I do know one thing that the market today was rife with rumors that the deficit for the current fiscal year are coming in way under
260 to 270 billion.
And that means something. Now it's not just it's not just the resolution trust. It's also the caps on spending and lower interest rates.
That's 16 billion. Maybe.
Yeah, and it's going to be a lot more next year.
Go ahead,
But remember, this is the lower deficit that was at first going to be a higher deficit that was the reason why we got a tax increase instead of a tax cut.
He's right.
So what's going on here?
If you're saying Clinton's a politician, you sure are right, Bob.
Well, in the middle of all of this, not so interesting.
Politician is one of the things I might call him.
Not such a sidelight today was the fact that we had the Federal Reserve aggressively intervening to shore up support for the buck, and it did work for a good chunk of the day. And of course, you had Larry Summers in the White House saying, this is a situation we're watching. I'm paraphrasing here, of course, but what do you make of that?
Well, I read his statement, which was rather brief. I read it in great detail again and again, and it was a very strange statement. He said that we're committed, and I didn't know if he meant that we were committed in the sense that we had a commitment because we had an agreement, or a commitment in the sense that we are determined to cooperate. He didn't say anything about intervening in this statement.
You become like a William Safire. Look at language.
You really have to look at what these policymakers say.
Actually, that's very true.
And at the end, what he said was he was very happy that the Japanese lowered their money market rates, when in fact, the most recent thing said by Japanese officials is that they're not going to cut their official rates. So,
we do know that the cabinet minister meeting that they had last night did diddly squat. Nothing.
Well, what we're being told is that nothing happened.
Do anything.
That's right. And the central banker is something separate. There may be some kind of side political deal. So nothing's happening in Japan, bottom line.
So the effect that we were looking for, a positive effect for our currency, nothing.
Well, we've got this intervention. We've got this strong.
How long does that work? You yourself have said that that's a specious argument.
Without something fundamental behind it, it's going to be hard to sustain this.
Let me go back. You said we were looking for something. I don't think anybody who followed Japanese, both politics and economics, expected anything substantial to come out of this meeting.
Well, even a goal to do something, didn't we? I mean, we got nothing out of it. We expected at least the goal for, let's say, either a fiscal stimulus package, something down the road, but the trappings of which would be laid out. We got nothing.
Everybody I knew wasn't expecting anything. I don't know anybody who thought anything of any substantive nature would be done, and that seems to be what happened.
Okay, Bob Brusca, final thought on the matter here while we got you. Your assessment of where we stand right now with regard to the dollar specifically. We got some support for it today. It moved up sharply better than 4 yen. Did we get away now from the sub-100 yen level?
Well, I don't think it's over yet. It's not over until something clearer is done in the policy realm. Again, what was done today was very vague. Talk about a fast rising dollar, not talking about a dollar whose level had gone beyond where it belonged. All of these allusions to the right kinds of things. No clear policy statements. Clinton's leaving his options open. He's not trying to stop this in any clear way yet. He may yet do it. There may be something in the works, but this wasn't it yet.
No inflation in the meantime.
Oh, there's no inflation.
Except
Look,
for vacation
gold turned around. Well, I'm not going to go there, so it's no inflation for me.
Okay, Robert, there's a reason for that. Robert Brusca, the Chief Economist of Nikko Securities. We'll have more after this.
Underneath every new Jimmy is the strength of a strong truck frame. An important advantage for towing, whether you're on-road or off-road. The GMC Jimmy. Drop in for a test drive.
At Phillips Petroleum, we're a sponsor of an international science fair where students create some amazing inventions, ones that help preserve the environment, while discovering the talents of the young people who will be here to enjoy it. That's what it means to be the Performance Company.
To help manage your money more wisely today, get the Wall Street Journal Guide to Understanding Personal Finance. The guide is filled with information you need to know before you buy a home, plan your retirement, or start saving for your child's college years. Subscribe now to the Wall Street Journal. Take advantage of this introductory offer. Get 10 weeks of the Journal for just $36 and your free copy of the Guide to Personal Finance. Call 800-445-4600. That's 800-445-4600.
What do you know about your stocks right now?
I thought I knew about my stocks when I bought them. Wrong.
Some of my stocks show a profit, some don't. What should I do?
Some of my stocks are down. Do I sell or wait for a rebound?
Here's the answer. Value Line's Investors Reference Library with 1,700 full-page stock reports, each featuring Value Line's rank for price performance. Value Line has been ranking stocks in this manner for more than 25 years with these outstanding results. This entire reference library is yours as a bonus with your subscription to Value Line's weekly stock reports to keep your information current. For only $55, Value Line will keep you up to date for the next 10 weeks. Only $55.
I knew all about my stocks when I bought them. How do I keep up with them?
Get the answers. Call 800-472-7753 for your bonus Value Line Investors Library and 10 weeks of crucial Value Line updates. Call now, and you'll also get every investor's guide to Wall Street words as an extra bonus. That's 800-472-7753. Call now.
This trade agreement means a better future for America's workers, for American industry, for the American economy. I think it is very much in our interest to adopt it. I believe the fact that Bill Daley has agreed to take a leadership role enhances the chances of its adoption.
All right, well, the president couldn't have made a better selection, at least in trying to address the community he was trying to address, i.e. labor leaders, with his choice to spearhead this NAFTA accord, if you will. That is Richard Daley. He's the brother of the Chicago mayor, Richard Daley, and, of course, the son of the famous mayor, Richard Daley, of years past. So the question is now, with this choice, can the administration go ahead and spearhead an effort to get the NAFTA thing passed? They've got the broad outlines of an agreement among his counterparts in Canada and Mexico, but he has some key blocks, certainly in the House and Senate, led by, in the House Majority Leader, Dick Gephardt. So obviously a very tough road ahead of him. Here to address the matters at hand is William Doherty. He's Executive Director, American Institute for Free Labor Development. Not a big fan of this accord. It's an arm, by the way, of the AFL-CIO. And Bill, good to see you back again.
Very good to be with you, Neil.
All right, and also joining us is a frequent guest on Business Insiders, but now he's got a really hoity-toity title coming up. James Jones, the former chairman of the American Stock Exchange, the former chairman of the House Budget Committee. And if things go as they are expected to go, tomorrow he will be the new U.S. ambassador to Mexico. And I'm already going to call you Ambassador. Ambassador Jones, good to have you with us.
Thank you very much, Neil. Good to be back.
All right, well, you've got a tough sell yourself, sir. What do you make of this, this going move here that you've got to get going to get this passed?
Well, first of all, I think Bill Daley was a very good choice. I visited with him a couple of days ago. He certainly knows how to run a national campaign, how to activate various groups, and that's what is needed right now, to disseminate information and to activate the groups. Including labor groups? Well, I think AFL-CIO has stated its position. They have difficulty with it. Bill Doherty can address that. I happen to think they're wrong on this issue, but over time it's going to work out. I think the ones that we have to activate are the ones who have expressed an interest, business people who are going to expand their payrolls and add new jobs because of NAFTA need to be activated. Others, environmental groups who can see that a NAFTA will actually improve the environmental quality on both sides of the border. These groups have to be activated. Those are the kinds of jobs that Bill Daley will be taking on.
Go ahead. Let me get your take on this, Bill. What do you make of it?
Very frankly, I have great respect for the ambassador. We share something in common. My dad was the head of the Letter Carriers Union, AFL-CIO, and his dad was a rural letter carrier, and I think he's going to be a great ambassador, even though he's wrong on the NAFTA issue.
We figured it couldn't all be nice.
The NAFTA issue is obviously supported by every single Republican in the Senate and the House, by all of corporate America, by all of the wealthy people of our country, and by all of the business people, simply because they're going to make wildly fantastic profit by exploiting the very, very cheap wages in Mexico. We, the American workers, have already lost 300,000 jobs to Mexico. Mexico without NAFTA, with 3,000 U.S. corporations transferring down there. NAFTA is a license to kill. It's a license to take all the rest of our factories and move them down there, and then brag that we have trade with Mexico, because all of the parts that we produce in the United States for factories that were creating jobs in the United States, those parts are now shipped to Mexico, and everybody says, oh, look at our trade is increasing. Our trade is increasing to the jobs that we used to have, whereas whole cities have been wiped out wholesale in this country.
But Bill, even allowing
factory cities have gone out of business.
But Bill, even allowing for that, I'm sorry, but even allowing for that, you can't deny the fact that exports to Mexico are now running at better than $40 billion from virtually nothing a few years ago.
But they're exports of U.S. parts to factories, 3,000 factories
Granted, but you have
that already transferred to Mexico.
Wait a minute. You have 700,000 U.S. jobs directly related to those exports.
Neil, you know what the minimum
Neil,
wage
I'm going to have to come in here.
Do you know what the minimum wage in Mexico is? Anybody on this program? It's $3.60 a day. Even our minimum wage is 8 times higher than that. But quite apart from that, the jobs that we've lost are the good jobs, $10, $12 an hour.
Well, let's get Jim Jones' hearing on this. Go ahead.
And they're all going to go on welfare.
All right, Ambassador Jones.
Agreement.
Well, I have great respect for Bill, but
you guys have a funny way of showing it, by the way.
There's a lot of misinformation there, and I'm sure it's innocently given. First of all, there are over 400,000 jobs in the United States, not in Mexico, but in the United States, that have been created in the last 5 years as a result of some lowering of the tariff barriers in Mexico. Yeah. Secondly, these are not jobs that are sending parts to Mexico to be re-exported. 83% of the parts that are going down there are being consumed in Mexico. Mexico is our third largest trading partner, and it is expanding all the time. We have about a $5 to $6 billion trade surplus with Mexico.
Mr. Ambassador,
5 years ago,
I'm not quite as innocent as you think. I can identify every single job we've lost, every town that has been impacted, every corporation that went down there, and you can't even start identifying 500,000 jobs that have been created because they haven't been. That is an academic myth.
Let me just put it this way.
All right, gentlemen, I tell you what, gentlemen, I'm sorry. I want to respectfully disrupt your respectful argument, and we'll get back to more right after this.
To everyone concerned about a secure and healthy future, come in under the insurance, investment, and managed care expertise backed by over $50 billion in assets. The Travelers, America's umbrella.
I took diet pills. I lost 34 pounds.
6 months later, the weight came back.
That's when I decided to get off the diet roller coaster and get on a Nordic Track.
In fact, Nordic Track is so easy to stick with that after 5 years, 7 out of 10 Nordic Track owners still use their Nordic Track skiers an average of 3 times a week.
It's been more than 2 years. The weight's still off, and I'm still on my Nordic Track. You should give Nordic Track a try.
Call now for a free video and brochure. Take weight off and keep it off. Nordic Track introduces the Weight Loss Satisfaction Guarantee. Research shows that Nordic Track's total body workout burns more calories than exercisers that only work your legs. Discover what numerous customers have found. With regular exercise on Nordic Track, you can take weight off and keep it off. And we're so confident you'll lose weight too, we guarantee it. We'll guarantee that you'll lose at least 10 pounds in 60 days or your money back. Call now for a free video and brochure. Ask about our 60-day Weight Loss Satisfaction Guarantee.
Do you know how smart investors make money in precious metals? The answers are here in the Metals Report, and it's free from the Profit Club. Call 1-800-PROFIT-1 now and learn the time-honored secrets that control precious metal prices. That's 1-800-PROFIT-1 for your free report. Call now.
Did you know there are 200 stocks in here that have raised dividends every year for the past 10 years? Do you know which ones they are? Is it this one, or maybe this one? We could be here a long time. Would you like to know? Then call Quick and Riley at 1-800-452-9523 for our exclusive dividend study. They're all in here. 200 stocks that have raised dividends every year for the past 10 years. And it's free when you call. As one of our 650,000 Quick and Riley investors, you can look forward to unbiased information like this every day, not questionable advice. When you call, you'll also get the full story on our new breed of broker, a personal broker who works on salary, not commission, and who saves you up to 76% over full-cost brokers and up to 30% over other major discount brokers. Still like to know? Okay, here's one. To get the other 199, call now for our free dividend study at 1-800-452-9523. Quick and Riley, a new breed of broker.
It will destroy millions of working jobs. You talked about concern for the working American. Read the details of NAFTA and you'll cry. If you say, why am I out here working night and day and taking the incoming rounds on NAFTA? It's because of my real concern for the working American, because his job will be wiped out. You cannot compete with the wage differential.
All right, in case you had your doubts, that was Ross Perot, and in case you weren't clear on it, he does not like the NAFTA agreement. He has said for some time that it would be like a great sort of, what was it?
Sucking sound
of jobs leaving this country. Now, I'm going to bring this point up with James Jones, who is to be our new ambassador to Mexico. And Ambassador Jones, one of the arguments that's been made again and again is that it is simply too tempting for American businesses, especially those right along, let's say, even the Yucatan area, to ignore the fact that wages in Mexico are a fraction of what they are in the U.S. I believe the latest read has them at $2.35 an hour versus, with everything, $16 or so in the United States. That looks tempting.
Well, first of all, there are a lot of answers to that. Number one, every study that I've seen, except one that is related to the unions study, shows that there is a net increase in jobs, and they're higher paying jobs as a result of lowering trade barriers, and that there will be a net increase of jobs, higher paying jobs in the United States as a result of NAFTA.
But how long do you wait?
Number two, if wages were the sole criteria, then Haiti, Bangladesh, places like that would be the industrial capitals of the world. Wages are a fraction of all the cost of production and of being competitive.
It's the major criteria, plus the fact that they have a common border with the United States and Haiti doesn't, plus the fact, thanks to the fact they've had no democracy in Mexico, with the pre-government they have stability. And if I were going to invest a couple of $1 million for cheap labor and a good product with a high profit, I'd go to Mexico, not Haiti, and so would you, Mr. Ambassador.
Well,
look, we're going to remind every congressman in this country, we're going to show him every factory that is closed in his district and every job that has left his district for Mexico. We're going to ask him to show us where the new jobs are, if there are so-called 500,000 jobs out there, that can be identified to replace them, what the pay scale is, and what we're going to do about the fact that we continue to export our manufacturing facilities in this country, not only to Mexico, but to other parts of the world.
Gentlemen, could you hold on a second? Gentlemen, I just want to bring in Al Kingon.
Every congressman is going to have to answer that question.
He will. I want to bring in Al Kingon to this argument.
You have to put this in some kind of perspective. 10,000 jobs Eastman Kodak's going to get rid of, IBM, go down the list. Companies in the United States that are not competitive.
Also, General Electric, Kodak, General Electric today, and AT&T is going to fire its international operators as of today.
All right, my point is that you must put this in perspective. Companies that are not competitive are going to lose, and they may lose altogether. If some companies can produce their products or services elsewhere around the world and survive and prosper in the United States, ultimately it means more jobs for the United States.
That sounds like let them eat cake.
Yes, certain jobs will be lost, without a doubt, in the first year and a half.
Millions of jobs are being lost.
And certain companies will expand. Auto industry, financial services, textiles, agriculture will all immediately benefit if NAFTA is done and there is a flow of trade,
and they're going to hire
more
people. They're going to hire more people in the automobile industry.
Absolutely, if they're exporting more cars.
Ambassador Jones, go ahead.
The companies are going to manufacture in Mexico.
Ambassador Jones,
that's simply not true. Let me put in perspective again. Also, I hope we never come to the point that we are so afraid of global competition that we become inward and protectionist, and that's what we're headed for if we don't pass NAFTA. I had an organization, or I did chair an organization called the American Business Conference. This is an organization of 100 of the fastest growing companies in the United States. We recently did a survey over the past 10 years of our companies, and they have to grow twice the average, national average, in order to stay in the organization. Those who exported, those who were involved in global trade, created twice as many jobs in the United States than those who were only active on domestic trade. And so Every time we have had an opening of trade, and a reduction of trade barriers, an opening of trade opportunities, the United States has created a net increase of jobs, and it's going to happen again with NAFTA.
Mr. Jones, I'm in favor of NAFTA. It's very hard to be against it. But labor has got a right to be concerned, don't they, that the side agreements that you guys have promised really won't be enforced, that the enforcement mechanisms are extremely weak.
Let me address that.
Okay, because
that's a very important point there. Number one, this is really a historic labor agreement in a trade agreement. Number two, there are very enforceable ways that the labor laws in the three countries will, in fact, be enforced. More than we have now. It's going to be. But number three, I think organized labor, workers in general, have a right to be concerned about any trade agreement as to whether or not they're going to.
There are no teeth in the.
One second. Let me just finish this point, and then you can interrupt me.
But there are no teeth in the side agreement. The side agreement insists that Mexico obey its own labor laws. It has nothing to do with international labor standards. The Mexican labor laws are miserable.
William,
we don't even want those laws.
William, I definitely want to hear from you. I want to just let the ambassador finish.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Ambassador.
We can go back to the teeth in the enforcement agreement, but the third point that I think is very important, I do want to get this across, and that is in any advance in economics or in trade, there will be those who will lose jobs.
Yeah. Well, they're human beings. They're human beings. They're human beings.
And we have an obligation to those workers to have adjustment assistance and training assistance, and I'm very pleased to say that the Clinton administration is absolutely committed to a strong trade adjustment assistance program, and that will come along so that these folks will be trained for higher-paying jobs later on.
The
higher-paying jobs,
the higher-paying jobs aren't there, and the adjustment assistance is like extended unemployment benefits. Eventually, the American worker wants a job. He doesn't want to depend on food stamps. He doesn't want to be on welfare. He wants to work for a living, and he wants to earn a decent wage. He can't do it. He cannot do it. He cannot earn a decent wage competing with Mexicans that make 1/15 of their salary.
Bill, could I ask you something in all seriousness? Are you just ignoring the inexorable tide of history here, that this is the rule of the world, this is happening globally, and you just want to, for every good intensive purposes, hang on to something that you can't hang on to?
What makes capitalism work is the people that have jobs that produce can buy the products that they're producing.
But they need to be in businesses. They need to be in businesses that are competing.
Now capitalism is working by destroying markets, by making sure that workers can't be part of the market.
Bill, do you have the votes to beat?
You can't buy a car with minimum wage. Pardon?
Do you have the votes to beat NAFTA? Have you got the votes?
All I know is that we're depending on an awful lot of congressmen and senators that are up for re-election. They're going to look at how many jobs have left their districts and how many jobs they can really convince the people are going to come to their districts.
Ambassador Jones, the math looks like it's on your side. You've got most of the Republicans with you. All you need is really just actually a few dozen in the House on the Democratic side, and you've got it, right?
Well, I think there are two issues. If the members of Congress will look at the independent studies as to the net increase of jobs, they would be for it on that basis. But more importantly, if they look at it from a foreign policy point of view, I think this is the most important foreign policy issue, geopolitical issue, and I don't believe they're going to turn their backs on that.
All right, Ambassador Jones, that's all the time we have. James Jones, U.S. Ambassador Designate for the moment to Mexico, and always the quiet and meek William Doherty, Executive Director, American Institute for Free Labor.
And I wish the Ambassador great luck on his new assignment.
Thank you very much.
As do we all. For Al Kingon and Bill Wolman, I'm Neil Cavuta. Good night, everyone.